Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Critical Podcast. My name is Jimmy Good, and I am but one of your hosts. And joining me, as always, is my go-to podcast compadre, Mr. Joe Lever. Joe, how you doing, buddy?
Hiya, Jimmy. Good to join you again for another crazy podcast.
It's crazy. It's like whack-a-doos and all that stuff. Wait, I'm sorry.
I gotta tell you, I'm pretty prepared for this one. I've been reading a lot of cookbooks lately. I've switched from Paula Deen back to an old classic, Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg.
They did a cookbook together?
So, actually.
Oh, wow. I'm not surprised. If she hangs out with Conan, she'll hang out with anybody. Conan's a fan of the show. He'll get that joke. Joe, what are you drinking tonight, by the way?
Oh, just a staple in every man's diet is an ice cold, crisp, refreshing Canada Dry ginger ale. Keeps the old ticker ticking.
Yeah, that's. I'm gonna make it a really big effort to try and show this to the PR people over at Canada Dry headquarters, if there is such a thing. I assume it's on a mountain somewhere. They're just like watching from like an evil hideout. There's a. Anyway, for those
how
of us,
dare they show our product in such a bad light?
They love it. No, you're a shining example. If I did it, they'd be like, that guy's just, look at him, look where he is. But they should see you in your like yellow shirt and stuff. You're like, oh, this is a man about town. He likes the Canada Dry.
Yeah, believe it or not, old Joe was doing a little work in the field instead of the office today. I got the old Ellis high-vis shirt on, and I was out there marking up some floors and ripping up some stuff. So yeah, it was a bit of a day.
I feel like I have to ask.
I
have to ask this question. Was this a place you were supposed to be? Because it sounds like you just went and messed up a place. Because you're like, I marked up some floors, I ripped up some things. Hey,
they left the cat in the skid steer. Or the key in the skid steer, so I just went crazy. No, I have a job going right now, and it's actually an Aldi's grocery store. And we're remodeling it and putting an addition onto it to make it bigger. We're working nights, but my superintendent is doing daytime work, and we're strapped for manpower. So I took the afternoon out of the office and went and helped them. So
gotta call in the A-team.
Gotta call in the A-team for the clutch assist and whatever it takes to get the job done.
I love when
Canada Dry.
I love it when a plan comes together. It's my little A-team joke. Anyway, for those of us who are joining us once again, thank you to all of our lovely Legionnaires. We really appreciate it. And if you're joining us for the first time, we like to talk cookbooks occasionally, but we usually talk about movies, TV shows, and video games typically here. But before
everybody knows that was a joke, right?
Well, maybe there's somebody new here, Joe. Maybe it's if we're saying hi, hello, new viewer. It's nice to see you.
Or maybe they like cooking.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
Should we talk food here once in a while?
I think.
What do you like to eat when you sit down for a new Netflix series? What's your go-to? Drink and food.
New Netflix series. Usually the same thing I always eat is like some chocolate chip cookies and some milk. I like to Santa it up, and I like to just sit there. And like,
as he grows his beard.
I've been growing it out. Can't you tell?
Yeah, white and wispy.
Yeah, last like 20 years of my life.
My go-to depends on time. Have I already eaten a meal? If it's meal time, nice pizza. Yeah. Thin crust, something or other. Heat one up. A nice cold Canada Dry.
I gotta say this though, Joe. As far as frozen pizzas go, and I swear we're not sponsored by either Canada Dry or this pizza company, but Tombstone is my absolute favorite pizza. Not only is the name great, but it goes well while watching the movie Tombstone. I've done that. I watched it, and I think I did, and I was like, this is perfect. I love this. It's so good. Tombstone pizza, man.
It's so cliche.
I don't care. I love it so much. I don't care. Anyway, we're moving on.
I like to watch Pirates of the Caribbean and eat a Jack's
while drinking Captain Morgan
while doing the pose.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable. He sits there for 2.5 hours. He's just it's like, oh, it's very, very painful. Flawless. Anyway, before we get into talking about War for the Planet of the Apes, because I saw it and I want to talk about it, I want to go over some news first. First off, Joe and I, maybe more so myself, we're Godzilla fans. we actually saw Godzilla 2014. Was it 2014 show? I think it was in theaters together, in IMAX. Which we before they even played it, the best part happened. They had the Godzilla roar, and we were just sitting there, and there was just like nothing on the screen. It was just like some sort of image, but it wasn't Godzilla. And they're just like, "Oh, prepping for the show," and then they roar. We're like, we looked at each other like, "Oh, this is gonna be pretty good," because it really shakes your core. But we got some information about the monsters that are going to be featured alongside Godzilla this time around. And as a diehard fan or an old school fan, watching the weirdos like in those suits back in the day punch each other around a place, I'm really excited to see these specific ones show up. So the three are Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Rodan. Now, Mothra, if you guys are unfamiliar with it, just a giant moth. Sometimes has like little baby like pupas going around and fighting for it. He kind of shoots webs, has like magic spores it can kind of lay out typically. King Ghidorah, typically like a huge villain for Godzilla. It's a 3-headed golden dragon from space. Usually, I think this time around it's like dormant on Earth. I don't know if it came from space and then, but
how did it come from space? Yeah, explain that one, Godzilla.
It gets so weird, Joe. There's like a space Godzilla and stuff. It gets really nuts as far as Godzilla lore goes. I used to watch the movies and skip over the parts with humans in it because I was like, I don't care about this. Sometimes they were bug people, sometimes they were monkey people. It was very strange. Anyway, and the last one.
That's probably the Asian influence. Sorry to say.
Well, I mean, right? The whole thing is just it's pure. That's where it came from. It was like that Asian. They made it. And then Rodan is like a big pteranodon, like you might have seen like Jurassic Park 3. He's just like big, like winged kind of pterosaur. Pretty powerful. I don't know if he's got like a breath attack of any sort. I'm trying to remember if he does, but it sounds like he will be found at the base of a volcano or maybe inside of a volcano. King Ghidorah out in the ice somewhere because they had this little promo thing for Kong Skull Island that's tying into the rest of Godzilla lore because that movie universe is one big universe. It's all tied together, which is really cool with the agency of Monarch being like these kind of behind the scenes people who are monitoring these super terrestrial creatures, these like apex predators, like truly apex. Like, I don't know how you get more apex than Godzilla, Joe. But I had you look at some of these designs, and I kind of wanted to know what you thought of them, as someone who hasn't maybe seen these guys before.
First of all, I like the realistic turn that the movies have taken. I like that they're tying it into like this whole subterranean, under Earth's crust domain, if you will, or environment where these creatures have been surviving and soaking up radiation. I kind of like how they're kind of fleshing all that out. The one wrench that they'll throw into it is if King Ghidorah really is from space. I'm like, huh? Yeah, I don't know.
That's true.
How to get here? How did it breathe up there? Tell me, how did it breathe? I want to know.
It doesn't need oxygen, man. It's that powerful. I don't know.
It held its breath for years.
Well, two of the heads held the breath, and the other one was like, they took turns.
Yeah.
He's like, Frank, you're up, and he's like,
I can't, no. Yeah, I just don't know. But as far as design goes, I've seen a little bit of the King Ghidorah, and they have a little teaser here on a website I was seeing. It's current, 2017, but one that they're showing this concept art of Rodan, the pteranodon type thing. Pretty cool. It's a very realistic design. Kind of it's monstery, but it's not far-fetched in any way. It's very dinosaur-esque, as you would expect, as all these creatures kind of are. So I like that they're keeping it fairly natural feeling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't want it to get too out there to where I'm just like, meh, okay, sure. I don't want to have to take my you say oftentimes about movies, you gotta engage your imagination and toss your
suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, suspension of disbelief. Yeah, so that I don't want it to end up to be that scenario. And so far, they've done a good job to where, wow, this is kind of cool, and like this could be a plausible thing. You know what I mean? And part of me really enjoys that, and it makes it feel more I think it has a highbrow quality to it, and a more adult appeal, which I think a movie like this should. It's not necessarily your teeny boppers going to this, or your 10-year-old kids having their parents take them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's actually a good point, Joe. I think a lot of the people who would bring their kids to this are people who, like myself, maybe grew up with this franchise or this series and says like, hey, like my kids can come watch Godzilla. Kind of, it's like a destruction or a catastrophe movie, but you actually have a villain and a protagonist. Whereas like in San Andreas, it's just like an evil earthquake and like everyone's just like running for their lives. And I think that's one of the draws to it that makes it like a step above something like, you know, that or The Day After Tomorrow or something along those lines. But I think one thing I am nervous about, though, you talk about being kind of natural looking. I think King Ghidorah might present the biggest problem because with Rodan and Mothra, you kind of have things to base it off of animalistically. But with King Ghidorah, it's a three-headed dragon, and it doesn't necessarily have arms. It just got feet, like her legs. So usually the arms are it's heads on the side, so it'll like kind of grab and pinch like Doc Ock almost. Kind of thing, and then it would like kind of throw its prey or bites or whatever. And it typically has like a lightning breath. That was like its thing; it could like shoot lightning, which is actually pretty cool. I don't know if they'll implement that or not because Godzilla's got his breath, so I don't know. It might be kind of confusing, but I'm excited to see it because it's like that's one of the hardest ones to tackle. There's a few other weird ones that have like mechanical things built into them. Like there's one called it's like Gigan or Gigan Joe. He's got like these big like scyther arms. He's got a big like chain or just like a big blade like a table saw like built into his chest, so he'll like hold something and then it'll be like and then you like pull him into it. Then he also has like a cyclop laser beam in his head. He's pretty nuts. I like him a lot.
But my problem with that is, I mean, yeah, it's cool and it's kind of interesting, but
I know.
Is he a Transformer?
Yeah, it's a Power Rangers villain at that point. It's a Power Rangers villain. It's
yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, I'm kind of like, don't bring that character to the table, guys. I'm sorry. I don't know how you're going to explain that one away. You know, thus far, they've really gone out of their way to make this seem like a plausible thing. Like this could be news from what's happening today, for all we know. But I mean, we know it's not true. But scientific and plausible, which I really, really appreciate. I don't want to see some guy with a table saw blade running up and like, hey, hug me, you know, or man-made metal chains or anything like that. You know, at that point, you're getting into like Transformer territory or cartoon stuff.
Sure. So, yeah. Well, I wonder too because
they could do a different rendition of it.
Yeah, definitely. Or there's another one that's pretty popular. His name is Mechagodzilla, but it's very kind of close to something like Pacific Rim. But instead of like the good guys being in a robot and the bad guy being the monster, it's flipped. Like Godzilla's the good guy and Mechagodzilla is built by like bad people. And it's got like a lot of things to fight Godzilla. It's like built just to fight him. It's like the same size as him, but it's all like metal and stuff, which could be interesting maybe for the third one. But I think it's smart to leave that for now.
But it also seems dumb logically, right? When you look at that, you're like, okay, Godzilla exists. We got to take him out. How are we going to do it? We got to build a machine. You know, it's not like we already have fighter jets or freaking missiles or anything that could.
Nope, that wouldn't work. He's too strong, man. They nuked him and it didn't work. He brushed it off. Like he's like, whatever. Like he literally, it's a deleted scene, but he brushes off the nuke in the first one. He's like, No, you make a good point. And right now I think Godzilla's portrayed as more of a protagonist because that's been the thing. Like Godzilla in the old series has been like sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad. And originally back in 1954, he was kind of an allegory for nuclear war and what it can do, the devastation of what it brings about. So
the Japanese origins, right?
Yeah, exactly. And exactly. And that I think it's really poignant, but I think it's also smart to keep him as your protagonist, especially if you're making a series out of it, because you have him versus then eventually King Kong, who needs to grow up a little bit more because he's not like in that movie. He's big, but there's just no way. Like after watching, he can maybe do a few things, but it just you got to keep that going because you can't really focus around a villain. You know, you can't be like, all right, Godzilla like destroyed everybody and no one could stop him. Like,
sure. I think there's an understanding that you get at the end of the film. You know, they're like, savior kind of a deal. He saved us from these creatures that were going to ultimately right?
Yeah.
Because they had effects on electronics, which we rely on. Godzilla doesn't really affect electronics. I mean, think about it. He passed out on the beach after tussling with the what did they call him again?
They're called the Mutos or the Mutos.
Yeah. So, if they can punch him out and take him down, and at least make him, kind of like, oh, I gotta sleep this off, or I'm exhausted, sort of a deal. What do you think? An entire army pummeling down on him is gonna do? I mean, eventually, he's still a creature. I just flesh and bone, right? But what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the Mecha Godzilla. Why would they do that? Why would they create that when they have other things to rely on that wouldn't need a big investment or advances in technology?
I think it was bad guys who made it, and they wanted to kill Godzilla because he was like a threat to whatever plan they had. I usually didn't pay attention to it, and I was just like, oh, okay, like Godzilla.
I'll be honest. I don't think they'll tap into it.
Yeah, it wouldn't be for a while, especially with Transformers and things like Pacific Rim 2 in the works. Like, I think it's just something they'll probably stay away from because they don't want the comparisons. They don't want to say like, oh, it's just the same as that. Why would I see this? So I think it's good to keep it natural.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you said, okay, Godzilla's the main protagonist, right? Okay, great. Kind of the hero, the savior, the guy who's protecting the world from the evil creature, so to speak. But more so, maybe it's a territorial thing, or on the top of the food chain, and he doesn't necessarily. I think they portray it pretty well in the first film, but he doesn't necessarily care about well-being of another species or anything. Nope. He's just there to do his thing and maintain the top of the pyramid, so to speak. He doesn't care if he knocks this building over or accidentally kills that group of people on the sidewalk. It's just him doing his thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think they did a good job of portraying that, and I think so. Like when you say he's not necessarily, sometimes he does bad things, sometimes he does good things. Well, maybe the bad things are inadvertent, but he's just an animal instinct doing what he's kind of set out to do. So I like that aspect, the natural feel, the pecking order, the animalistic instinct portion of it, the scientific points behind everything, and the development of this whole call it. Yeah, I think they're doing a good job thus far, and with what we're seeing on the horizon and the whole King Ghidorah thing, I'm not too worried about that. I think they'll do a good job portraying him, and I think they're on the right track. King Ghidorah is lightning breath. I wonder, with Godzilla, he's normally got the blue fire. Yeah. That's kind of how they did it here. I like how, the CG and everything was really well done. At the end, when he does that in the ones that Muto's mouth, it's almost like a kind of suspend my disbelief or engage it a little bit, my logic to say, sort of like, what would it be like? Some sort of a gaseous, acidic thing that he can breathe out, Yeah. And so it's really caustic, right? Is that caustic? Yeah. And he can force that out. I thought it was cool. And it's kind of a bioluminescence kind of deal on his back. Maybe not the right term for that, but I thought that was well done, and it wasn't too like, oh, whatever, stupid. I thought it was well done, and I hope they take those what would you call it? Those development of that ability, and they apply it to King Ghidorah and make it feel realistic and natural. I don't want it to be like a freaking thunderstorm. I want it to be maybe somehow he's kind of like an electric eel type of thing, and he can projectile that in some way, something of that nature. I think it could be cool. Some sort of gaseous thing that's like electrified, and he breathes it out, and it's just kind of a shocking type deal. And they show that like static electricity in there as he breathes it out. On the art team, I could help develop this. We could have a really good movie, guys. So, well,
typically in the past, it was like a literal lightning bolt. Like it would strike down, and they would kind of shoot it off. Like all three of the heads would be going crazy. It's like, whoa, guys, everybody, like, calm down. But you're totally right. I wonder if that is where, if they say it's from space, if they make that claim, they can say we're seeing things that don't like like we can't explain this. We just saw it like shoot out lightning from its mouth, and we barely understand Godzilla, let alone whatever the heck this thing isn't from Earth. You know, if it's not from Earth, then that's how they would maybe explain that. But you're right, I do like the Godzilla, the way they did that. And I will tell you this, every time I see that, especially the first time I saw all the spines light up, I was like, here we go.
Oh yeah, and the sound effects that they give it.
It's like whoa, 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 and you're like,
I was like, sweet.
it's like using a hyper beam. And honestly, that is not, I don't think that's the end of how big that's going to be. I think eventually they're going to make it like it used to be a big deal. And then I think it was like Godzilla 2000. It was like different, and he had like a red beam. But I'm thinking that eventually this is going to be like the trump card. Like he kind of used it here, but he'll like after a while he'll just like look and just it'll be like this big like kind of Dragon Ball Z Kamehameha like and just like like the city will be gone. It'll just be like
my main thing is I just want them to be able to explain it biologically, or I want it to have some science-based thing.
Sure, or at least
that's
look
all
like
I really want out of it.
Yeah. The subtitle, I should say, for this is Godzilla, King of the Monsters. So I'm wondering if this is going to come down to a 2-on-2 fight, or if it's going to be a free-for-all, because typically Mothra is usually a good guy, and I don't know if they'll team those two up against Rodan and Ghidorah, or if Rodan's typically a friend of Godzilla's. I don't know how they're going to do it. So I'm interested to see if it's going to be at the very end, like Godzilla's got, you know, like a foot on Mothra, like a foot on Rodan, and he's got like, you know, Ghidorah's head's like on each hand and on his like head, and he's just like, ha ha ha. he's murdered them all. But I don't know. What do you think?
I think King Ghidorah and Godzilla share some special relations.
What? Like they're related?
They're reptilian, lizard-like creatures. I think they're gonna team up.
Okay. They could. Who knows? I would love it if like they had like an inner monologue or subtitles for Godzilla's like thought bubbles. He's like, I'll team up with you for now, and then underneath he's like, for now. He's just like waiting to turn on him any moment again. He's like, I'm gonna throw the Eiffel Tower at you, dude, when you're not looking. Like,
spear you right through the freaking chest.
Yeah. Either way, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be good. Moving on to more news, Joe. The biggest pieces of news came out of D23. Yeah, that's right. We're talking about Disney. We're talking about theme parks. We're talking movies, TV shows, all that stuff, but mostly, truly, the theme parks. There's some crazy stuff coming out of here. Joe and I were talking about this beforehand. One of the things we remarked on is that by 2023, the Disney Cruise Line is going to try to nearly double the size of their current fleet. And we looked up one of the...
Jimmy, I know this is a big one and a big topic that we spent some time discussing because we thought it was really interesting. I think what we should do for this segment, and sorry to interrupt you, but
that's fine.
Let's go right down the line of all the news releases on D23. Right down the line, list them off so people know what we're talking about, what's on the list, and then we'll maybe dive more in depth on some of our favorites and the things that stood out to us.
Sure. That's fine. That works for me. All right, we'll start we'll start with that, just the Disney Cruise Line. We looked up one of those prices, by the way, $900 million for the Disney Dream. And that's just one boat. That's a dream boat.
FYI, your boy Joe was pretty close on his guess for the cost of construction.
Yeah.
I was pretty close on my guess for the cost of construction of a Disney cruise.
Yeah, he's very close. He said $1 billion, and I was like, $900 million. That's pretty. I mean, when it comes to that, like $100 million.
Within $100 million, all right. You know, maybe they decide to add another level. There's $100 million. All right, done.
John's like, I think we could put this puppy up to $1 billion. He's like, but there's this really sick like water slide idea I have. It goes all the way around the boat. It's made of gold.
All right, so we're gonna get back to the cruise line ship here in a minute. I've got a interesting tidbit to tell our listeners regarding cruise ships. So
sure.
Go on.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just go right down these rapid fire. But anyway, there's going to be a Guardians of the Galaxy thing joined by Spider-Man and the Avengers. That's going to be over in Disneyland's California Adventure. That's pretty cool. Looks like there's some more stuff about Toy Story Land over in Disney's Hollywood Studios, and it looks like there's going to be some new stuff happening over Pixar related at Disney's California Adventure at the Pixar Pier. Pixar Pier. So, yeah. All right. One thing that was really interesting oh man, there's so many interesting things here. So check this out. There's going to be this new Kansas City Willis Theater over at the Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World. That's going to be nuts. This one is really interesting to me. We'll get back to it, but this one, Joe, like, oh yeah, new transportation system that goes. It's called the Disney Skyliner. It's going to be all around. It's going to go from Disney's Art of Animation, Pop Century, and Caribbean Beach, with other locations like Disney's Hollywood Studios and International Gateway at Epcot, all being connected. I think, which is nuts. Like that is bonkers. All right, a bunch of Star Wars. Yeah, I've been telling them to do that for years. Looks like there's this Star Wars stuff is nuts. They're making a Star Wars themed hotel near Hollywood Studios. And from some of the new stuff that we'll get into later about Star Wars Land, which is called Galaxy's Edge, which they announced too, what happens in the rides there can follow you. And like if you go into a cantina somewhere else, like they might like know your information. So if Joe is like a sharpshooter and did really well in like a ride or something, they might be like, oh, heard you're like a space ace or whatever. And then he could take that information and it could follow him back to that hotel where they would talk to him as if he were like a space ace or whatever. And they'd be like, oh, there's some bounties out on you, man. Heard you did really well out the trying out the Millennium Falcon. I was like, oh my God. Like,
what?
I know, crazy, right?
Wait, who's telling you these things?
Oh, just like the staff or the employees, or maybe like displays and things like that who'd read your wristbands potentially. Pretty nuts. Sounds like Disneyland.
I would just run around like, read my wristband, please. Read this, please.
Disneyland Paris getting a cool Marvel themed kind of section in their New York hotel. Pretty neat. There's going to be this interesting thing next to Mission Space that is kind of like a space themed restaurant, kind of like the Disney Star Wars hotel we just talked about. It will look like you're in space. I guess a lot of that hotel for Star Wars, all the windows will look like you're in space, but when you go down to the ground level, it'll seem like you're going back to Earth, like in an elevator. Pretty crazy.
Think of this. Picture the Space Needle in space, only more white, clean, sophisticated, modern. Or even think about this. Think of Passengers.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
For visual aid.
Yeah. One of the biggest things coming down here, though, too, one of the highest rated Disneyland Shanghai attraction, or Shanghai Disneyland, the Tron roller coaster, will be coming to Walt Disney World, which is huge because it's going to be right by Space Mountain, which is incredible. Will still be more popular. Well, I'm still going to go on it. Hopefully it takes people away from Space Mountain so I can just go on it more. I'll still go on both. Anyway, it sounds like Epcot's getting a lot of interesting things. They're getting a Ratatouille. I don't know if it's an inspired attraction, which I wouldn't be surprised to see a dark ride over there. They're expanding a lot of France, which makes sense. There's some area back there. And they're actually replacing Ellen's Journey into Energy or whatever it is. They have this kind of Ellen DeGeneres ride that's like talking about new sources of energy. It's a bit dated, but that's okay. But Guardians of the Galaxy is getting a themed attraction over there. This one's kind of interesting too. Sounds like my gosh, I can't even think of it. The Man Chinese Theater, the Great Movie Ride. There we go. The Great Movie Ride at Disney's Hollywood Studio is actually getting closed on August 13th and being replaced by this interesting new Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which is supposed to debut this new technology, not 3D, but 2.5. So that means you won't necessarily need your 3D glasses, which leave it to friggin' Disney to come up with something that's going to be like, you'll sit there and be like, what am I even looking at? And then finally, Galaxy's Edge, basically Star Wars land at both Disneyland in California and at Disney's Hollywood Studios, which they're expanding out, including 2 attractions, one where you pilot the Millennium Falcon, and then one where it's a New Order versus the Resistance. So, yeah, that is all the news that I know of. For the parks, there's some Kingdom Hearts stuff. Toy Story 3 was announced for a Kingdom Hearts 3 land and things like that. But this is the stuff that Joe and I kind of wanted to go over quickly. But Joe, I don't know, is there a few out here that kind of stand out to you that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I'll hit you with them right now. First off is the adjacent to Mission Space, the new table service restaurant.
Yes.
I like the space restaurant idea. The concept art is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it looks like, so the windows you're looking out and you're seeing Earth and the atmosphere and stuff. It looks like that's all going to be, basically a big LED screen of sorts. And they're going to have like astronauts out there on cables doing work and stuff. I think that's a really cool concept. I think there's a lot of versatility there and the creativeness that you can approach things with as far as your cuisine and the way you serve things and the furniture, the aesthetics of the building, the space itself. I think it really opens itself up well to just eating and getting your nutrition for the day, but you're in an immersive experience that just kind of blows your mind. It's kind of like a poor comparison, but when you go into like Rainforest Cafe, you're kind of immersed in that whole like jungle vibe. But I think the main thing that sticks out to people there is like the fish tanks. There's nothing more cool than like a tropical saltwater fish tank like that. That's just an amazing display that just captures your attention, relaxes you, and kind of captures your, it gives you a sense of awe, I guess, you know. And I figure in the same way you'll kind of get this out of the viewing experience in this restaurant. I just think it'll be really neat. Concept art, I think, really kind of puts it in perspective for people. So
two quick predictions before we move on. First off, I'm sure there'll be like that packaged ice cream that you can get, like it's like dry, like frozen dried ice cream. That'll be something you can buy there. And because it's going to be kind of close to the new Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, there will be some like Rocket Raccoon in the background that'll float by once every like 45 minutes or an hour or something. Like it's going to be all like really technical and space wise, and then there'll just be like a raccoon who's just like,
that would be cool to see. Versatility and creativity that can be applied.
Call me.
Yeah, it's a really good base foundation to do things like that with. So next one is I'm a little jealous that Disneyland Paris is getting this one, but the Marvel themed Hotel New York.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of cool.
I think it's just going to be brought to. I don't think it's going to be like a full Marvel thing, but I think they're just going to add a bunch of Marvel stuff to the hotel. I think. I don't know.
I see like a display case on the wall in the lobby of Iron Man suits. I see a bunch of art on one of the main walls in the back of the lobby.
Maybe they're tricking out the reception area and some of the other stuff, and it'll just be marveled a little bit. But it's you're right. I didn't see that Iron Man stuff there. Like seeing Iron Man suits in your own hotel, like that's pretty cool. Like I'd be like,
Yeah, I'm just thinking that if they've got cool props and stuff like that on display, it's almost going to be like a Marvel museum, so to speak.
Dude,
maybe not quite, but maybe it's more like you're in that world of Marvel, like the whole the New York catastrophe actually happened, and they've got things on display or artwork that kind of relates to that and the happenings. I'd have a bit of a modern vibe to it. Speaking from a construction perspective, coincidentally, I'm picking 2-3 things that have to do with that. I'm captured by the design of these places, and where do I apply to do this work? Who's doing this construction? I want to know, do they actually bid this out to general contractors down there? Who does it? I want to know.
Yeah, it's probably, it probably is, Joan. It's probably for like a still high quality, but it's a bidding war, I'm sure, if you land these types of jobs. You know how it is.
I can just tell by certain finishes and aesthetics that there's some really not only high-end, but very one-off items here, almost things that you would probably have to acquire through like specialty prop shops. Like the guys you see doing features for, like the show Tanked on Animal Planet, stuff like that. They're doing like specialty prop making type stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of that featured here, and just one-off fabrications. I mean, just some of the stuff I'm seeing, this is not typical stuff you can get from suppliers and vendors in the industry right now. It's just kind of one-off type things. So that really speaks to me and captures my attention. The lighting type stuff that they're applying, really neat. So moving on, this one isn't really in my top 3. I'm kind of going for the top 3, but this one does kind of capture my attention, which is the Star Wars inspired experiential resort, which is going to be in Disney World. I think that's really cool. And then again, it's going back to everything I just said about the last one, the aesthetics, the finishes, the just one-off design that's just amazing. I want to know how you construct something like this professionally and make it, not only, you also have to make it code compliant for people to inhabit it. How do you make something like this code compliant and meet all the requirements, sprinklers and all the systems that have to be in there? There's something to that. It's amazing, and I that speaks to me. So that one I'm going to kind of lump in with the Marvel Studios one. But
cool. That's definitely. I'm looking at more concept art here, and it looks like you're walking, and will want to walk onto a set of Star Wars, and that's your bedroom. Just be like, and you look out the window and you're over a planet, and maybe you can choose like different rooms, or maybe you can choose different like what planet. They're like, hey, do you want to be like over Hoth? Do you want to be over Geonosis? Like we can change that for you, or you can be like, hey, oh, that's the Naboo wing, or that's the Tatooine one if you want to look over that.
Oh yeah. More of the concept art is really amazing. Like it looks like windows are becoming LED screens, like similar to like what you see on, there was some conceptuals for a plane that they were designing that was made out of it was lined with LED panels so that they could turn it on. So it was basically like you were just floating in a seat and you could see everything outside. It projected the outside visuals inside.
I'd die. I'd be like, ugh!
But that's what I'm envisioning with the windows. They're showing space and they're showing like these big not star destroyers, but what do they call the big like battleships?
Star destroyers. Yeah.
So they're showing those out there, and a bunch of cool imagery. Basically, like if you're on a ship in space, you're in your hotel room and you look out the window and there's space. There's nothing more immersive than that. That is. What a cool setup for an amazing immersive experience.
It goes to show that Disney is like one step ahead, because I'd never thought, I was like, oh, you put Star Wars in your parks, sure. I didn't think Star Wars Hotel, like they would actually make an actual structure to have people sleep at that is like for one thing, because typically Disney does like different, like kind of like the Polynesian, the Grand Floridian, things that are just kind of like places as opposed to actual thematic ones, or they'll have like Pop Century, but they won't to this scale. And I wonder, like, how crazy do they go with it? Do you go completely nuts and you say, like, do you want to be the First Order or the Resistance? And then you might have a different floor depending on that. So if you have, like, First Order, it might be, like, really kind of, like, cut and dry, like, all, like, kind of whites and grays and, like, blacks and reds. But then if you have the Resistance, it's kind of more, maybe, like, looks run down, but, like, orange and browns and things like that. Oh, man. It could be incredible.
Yeah, and just going off the concept art, I get what you're saying there. And I mean, just the stay at your hotel/resort, this Star Wars inspired one is an experience in itself outside of the park, where you're almost like you feel like you're in the Star Wars world, because you're not really exposed to anything out beyond the walls of the resort, right? You're kind of like, you feel like you're in space because everything they show you out a window is space.
Yeah.
To your eye, your brain is almost fooled into thinking you're really in space.
Yeah. Well, apparently that's part of this initiative I'm just reading about here, but Disney's 360 vacation concept, which is just like another level of immersion. It's like you're constantly, like, eventually the buses will be like that, going to and from this place. So, like, actually they're like shuttle transports to like wherever you need to go, and it will look like LEDs on like the windows and stuff. Like,
like you step into the bus and outside it's sunny and 98 degrees. You step in, it's air conditioned, and you feel like you're in a spaceship because you look out the windows and all the windows are LED screens that project space. And you're like, oh my God.
You could press a button that has like, it shoots out really, really strong AC with a little bit of fog for cryo sleep. And then you can just like pretend to wake up later, like, how long was I out? It'd be like 16 minutes, but it's actually 6 hours, like. I just love the idea. Okay, what's the last thing that you said? There's like a 3. You're doing 3, right?
I'm saving the last one here. I will say update number 9, the Magic Kingdom Park will have a Kansas City Willis Theater.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly everything about that.
Means. What does it mean? Is it an actual theater? Like, hey, go see a Disney movie here at this theater. I don't know that really gets my attention. I can go see a Disney movie anywhere. What makes this special? Do I want to pay for access to?
I know what they're doing.
Kill 2 hours with a movie.
I know what they're doing, Joe. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, over at Disneyland California Adventure, they used to have an Aladdin show over there, but it's now a Frozen show. So Disney's not opposed to doing stage shows, and that's one thing that they've been doing these live performances in front of the Magic Kingdom typically. But if they have a space specifically for it, not that they would stop doing that entirely, but maybe this would allow them to say, hey, if you come to the Magic Kingdom, we can get more people in the park because there's going to be like an 800, 900,000 person seated theater or more, and they can come see like a world-class Broadway style play as part of the park admission. Like you can come in and see like Aladdin or The Lion King, like not just like the one at Animal Kingdom, which is very good, but like a straight up like legit like this is the Broadway Lion King, or you know whatever else it could be. I think that's what they're going for because it says they're trying to make a place for world class entertainment. So that's what I would guess.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, just that building alone. I mean, we just talked about some buildings that are for sure like hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe not quite. Those hotels might be more of 100 mil somewhere in there. Maybe not even quite that. You know, I'm gauging it off of like hospital buildings that I've personally worked on, and I know contract values up to 50 million, that sort of thing. So with the technology and the finishes that are in this thing and the kind of the one-off outlying details, I think you could probably be approaching hundreds of millions of dollars. But this theater, for instance, you're probably approaching, for the size of it, the things that are going in it, all the backstage type features, the prop rooms, the dressing rooms, all those things, the systems that have to go into that. I mean, you're probably talking 100 million-ish plus, who knows? I'd love to see dollar amounts tagged to these things just out of curiosity. Just because of my background professionally, I think it's interesting. This company is investing just ungodly amounts of money.
Yeah.
I mean, which brings me to my last one, my of my top three, the Disney Cruise Line.
Oh, really?
So we brought this up initially when we started talking before we kind of went down the rundown. But so what was it? They're saying they're planning not 2, but 3 new ships in the next phase of expansion. By the time these ships are sailing, we'll have nearly doubled the size of our fleet. That means more families than ever before will be visiting spectacular destinations around the globe on Disney Cruise Lines. So, this is interesting. So last year we told you that 2 new ships are going to be built at the Meyer Wharf and Shipyard in Germany. Scheduled completion dates of 2021 and 23. Additional ship will be built at the same shipyard and is scheduled to be completed in 2022. So now think of this: 3 new ships, $900 million each. Rounded up to $1 billion with operating costs and getting them to the sea, and then getting them to their destination. Round them up to $1 billion. $3 billion just to add 3 cruise ships to their cruise line.
So they'll have 7, it looks like, altogether. And for people who don't really understand what we're talking about, Disney Cruise Lines, and we're talking like a cruise line ship, like huge, insane. Like you're looking at something that it's just like it's a big piece of land basically that's just moving throughout the water. Like it's huge. They're just ginormous. I can't even I don't even know what to compare it to, Joe. But they're massive. They're incredible. Like there's so many things in there. They've got like we talked about that theater and stuff. They'll have like those built into all these types of cruise ships. Other cruise ships have these things too, like Carnival, I'm sure. But they have like a bunch of pools, a bunch of like other things. Not to mention, it's like all inclusive type situations. So there's tons of storage room for the food just for that, and the number of guests that they can have on there. And then they'll have special places, like they'll have like a Marvel area where you can meet Captain America and like you're in a SHIELD room or something like that. Like all of this stuff. And it's like insanity, like many restaurants. Like it's like, but that just shows that Disney it's doubling down almost on their cruise ships, which means they're probably going to take more people to the same destinations or try to pick some new ones. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. I've never personally been on one, but I would love to go. The thing is, you gotta plan it out right because you either got to go first and then go to the parks, or go to the parks and then the cruise line. Joe and I kind of reversed on this. I'd start with the cruise line and go excited about the parks, because the other way around, I'd be so sad. We'd come back into port in Florida, and I'd be like, I just got to go home. But, like, then you come back into port of Florida, and you're like, I get to go to Disney World. Like, oh, God. I'm prepared. I've just rested for a few days, and I'm just like, Walt, make me stronger. And then it just, yeah, that's what they want. Anyway, sorry, Joe, you're talking about the cruise.
Oh, yeah, so sure. So think about this. The size of a piston, and I think these engines are like, there's like a 12-cylinder, a 10, 12, and 14-cylinder version. The 14 is the biggest from what I'm reading. And I had a class called Statics and Strengths of Materials back in college. And being in construction, they exposed us to some engineering and some physics type stuff. And we did a calculation on how much force is applied to the shaft or camshaft of a cruise ship engine or something like that. What's the word for it? It's the crankshaft. So anywho, we actually figured out what the size of the sleeve was for where the piston goes. The piston goes inside of a sleeve and goes up and down and creates the compression. That sleeve is big enough to put a full-size vehicle in. And so figure 14 of those. And let me read this to you. This is really interesting. I think the biggest engines go more in cargo ships than cruise liners, but so think about this. It's a 2-stroke turbocharged diesel engine, and it runs at very low speeds. Each cylinder is 1,820 liters. So the engine runs at a fairly lethargic 22 to 102 RPM. Now think about this. Car out in the driveway probably idles at 800, 600, somewhere right around there. Just under 1,000 RPM. When you're going down the highway, it's at like 2,000 RPM. So that kind of puts it in perspective a little bit. Sure. And so at its highest RPM of 102, meaning 5,608,310 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah, geez. I'm not surprised.
And over 100,000 horsepower, brake horsepower.
Sure.
That's like, so it makes sense because you got to fight against the water in the ocean and power all that weight forward against the resistance. That just boggles my mind. And another way to put this thing in perspective is, I don't even know how, when you compare this to like a semi truck, figure like 4 semis stacked on top of each other and about half a trailer length behind them stacked up. That's how big of an engine we're talking about. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. And then that engine has staircases on it, platforms, so that you can access it and do maintenance and maintain it. Amazing. Yeah. Sorry I got off on a tangent, but that's why I picked the cruise line thing as my just because it boggles my mind and I find it to be impressive. $900 million, guys.
Yeah, well, that's per boat, and it is impressive to think that they have 7 of those, and that doesn't seem like like a big fleet. But if you see these ships, it's incredible. It's like, I'm just, Disney, man. Like, I know other cruise lines do it, but it's just, I can't imagine just like a Disney cruise. Plus, I've never been anywhere where it's all-inclusive, and that's a dream of mine, just to go to a place where I can eat as much as I possibly want. That's what boggles me mind, Joe, is that, like, I don't know how they, like, have enough food. Like, because I would think they always overshoot, and then they probably throw out a ton. That's what I'm always thinking. I'm like, how much, like, if I'm always ordering steaks, like, I'm just like, I'll just have, like, 2 steaks with dinner and then 2 steaks with breakfast. Like, that's, like, how do they account for, like, the weirdo who's going to show up and they're like, yeah, we don't have enough steaks. Like,
I would say that you're going to be clogged up for a month. But
sure. Anyway. Yes, that's what I paid for.
Some X-Lax or something to take care of that one. Jimmy, this podcast has been great. Good discussions. I'm enjoying it. I really am. So, yeah. Keeps me going.
That's great. I'm gonna do my top 3 a little bit quicker than Joe's because he's
Sorry.
taking the good ones. That's okay.
I'm such a gearhead. This
I know you
speaks to
are.
me. I am a gearhead.
When I said this to you, never in my mind did I think I should have like tried to doctor it so there wasn't a cruise line thing in there. So you would have been like, oh, some of the stuff looks neat. I didn't realize that like the cruise line would get you hot and bothered. Okay, so
Hot under the collar, pal.
Obviously, Galaxy's Edge, the Star Wars expansion, is one of the coolest things to me. They've needed to put Star Wars in there, and now talking about this immersive experience along with the hotel, which I don't remember if they said that was going to be a Disney Vacation Club member-only thing. I don't know. This is going to be a high-roller hotel for sure. Like, if you look at the other hotels and then you say, but it doesn't have the immersive experience of Star Wars, you're like, yeah, those rooms are going to be muy expensive.
500 a night? 600 a night?
Yeah,
maybe more.
Yeah, top floor, baby. I guess you have better LEDs up there. Like your screens are great. When you get up there, they're just they're so good.
And you can see Earth so much better from up there.
It'd be great if it was just the same in every room, and it didn't really change because like if you go up 12 feet in space, it's all like your perspective is like shifting, and you're like, oh, it's all different now. But a Galaxy's Edge, the new Star Wars land. I'm sure it'll be incredible. I think this is going to be the thing. Besides Pandora, which I know a lot of people are enjoying, Animal Kingdom. I don't really like Avatar, so it doesn't mean much to me. But besides that, or Harry Potter, which I've heard is very immersive, I think this is going to set the new standard. I think it's looking at what those two things have done and says, what can we do to bring it to a level that people don't understand, what they can't comprehend, like this idea of Joe walking into a cantina and someone saying to him like, oh hey, like it's that Space Ace or whatever. Like that is incredible. If you can sell people on that idea and then that can come to life, people are going to lose their minds. Like the wand thing at Harry Potter stuff, that's Harry Potter's land, that's cool, that's great. But if a human being who's supposed to be like a character in Star Wars walks up to you and addresses you as if you had just come off of an adventure, that's incredible. Like that's a new level. I
think what you're looking for here, Jimmy, is they're trying to trick the brain.
Oh yeah,
they're tricking the brain because you are not exposed to anything outside of the hotel. You are literally immersed, and your brain can't comprehend that you're not in that world. Like, oh, all I gotta do is walk over there, and I'm back in Florida, 95 degrees and sweating.
Sure,
but,
yeah.
You know what I mean? I would almost guarantee that somehow, some way, somebody in the human, I guess I would say psychology department is involved in this. Like, how can we really fool people into thinking that they are in this environment, they're a part of the universe, so to speak? I wouldn't doubt if there's somebody behind the scenes advising aspects of that.
Oh, totally. And I'm sure the cosplay and the costumes you can buy there will be extensive because, people will say like, yeah, you know what, I am that. I should probably look like that while I'm in this world, this land. You know what I mean? Like people will be buying things like hats and shirts and stuff, and it'll be like, oh, like, and you'll see them and it'll be like ranking officials. You'll be like, oh, he's with the First Order. Holy crap, that guy's like a lieutenant. Like he must be like a, bad news. I don't know. It just seems really cool to me, and I'm really excited about it. Next thing I'm really excited about, weirdly enough, is this new transportation system. Now, this looks a lot like the gondolas they used to have way back in the day at the Magic Kingdom, for those people who understand what I'm talking about. Basically, like these little pods you would get in, kind of almost ski lift-ish, but they don't go up, they just go across, and they kind of go across these big wires and ropes and take you from place to place. Now, I've been telling them that they should do this, especially at like the Beach Club, Yacht Club, Boardwalk, Swan and Dolphin and stuff for a long time. And there have even been a few things here and there on the top of those structures that always made me think, oh, they'll put a monorail in or something, because Disney loves their monorails, rightly so. But this is an easier thing than the monorails. Monorails, we're talking about those cruise ship stuff. Those monorails, just the tracks alone, and then the monorails themselves, that's got to be expensive. Like, and running like miles upon miles of, it's running new roads, basically, like electrical roads in the sky, like with a big bus that's always on it. Like that's, I would love to see that. Maybe one day they'll implement that, but this is a cool and interesting addition, and I'd like to see how they implement that, especially to Hollywood Studios and over to Epcot, which at this one, it says it'll be at the International Gateway, which is right over by Beach Club. So there'll probably be a little station that you can get into there because there's kind of a big building right there that there's a shop attached to it. So I'm not sure if that will attach to that and you can get off, or you have to sign your ticket in beforehand. I don't know. I'm just interested to see where that's going to go. Finally, my most exciting one. Huh?
Jimmy, sorry. I had to step in there for you. I'm going to interrupt with a little gearhead fact for you.
Okay, give me a gearhead fact.
So the gondola ride. I'm a big skier. We all know this. I've talked about it before. Granite Peak near me, central Wisconsin, one of the best premier ski areas in the Midwest. Entire hill is serviced by high-speed chairlifts. 2 4-person chairs and a 6-person chair.
Yeah.
I say high speed, it's not like a roller coaster, but it's pretty fast. You come out of that gondola staging area and you're flying up the hill. These are chairs. I've been on the gondola style out west and in Minnesota, actually. But these, to put it in perspective, to go about, I would say it's probably almost a mile. Granite Peak is less than 1,000 feet. Highest elevation of Rib Mountain, which is Granite Peak, is about 1,900 feet. So you're not going a hell of a distance, but to do every concrete foundation for every pole that supports the cable trolleys, and then to have the cable, the gondola, and all that. To put it in perspective, I think a 4-person quad chair costs about $2 million to go about a mile or less, probably less than a mile. So think about that with that gondola ride. And a gondola is even more expensive.
Sure, yeah. An air-conditioned gondola.
Is it really?
It's got to be. It has to be. They're not going to put these people in a metal box. And they're like, welcome to freaking Florida in July, baby. You and your family are going to die.
Tripled your cost and then times that by however many miles this thing is traveling. Boom.
Yeah.
Another convenient thing about this is that you can have multiple stations. I think you alluded to that, right? It's multiple stations. So your loading zone and offloading zone is at this resort, then it goes to here. It's a loading and offloading zone, then it goes to here, offloading and loading zone. So it's not like a tram where, the tram doesn't arrive for 15 more minutes. It's like, here's a chair, hop on, I'm next in line, which is really convenient, saves time, reduces bottlenecking, gets the traffic flowing through better, which is awesome. And smart concept. You said they had a feature like that before, some sort of chair lift type thing. Yeah, I think it's a very smart way to transport the massive amount of visitors.
Yeah, they used to have one, Joe. It would run from Tomorrowland over to right at the edge of Fantasyland, going into Liberty Square, and it would go right behind the castle. And I remember being on there once, and Joe, what this thing was, it was a gondola that didn't have windows. It just had rails, so you had to sit down in it. And this was back before they had a bunch of safety features. I don't think you needed to buckle in and stuff. But I remember going by it once, by the castle when they were doing fireworks once. I was like, oh my gosh, but somebody fell out and I think died or something. It was rough. It was nowadays you wouldn't have an open air thing like that. To that extent, that open where people could just be like, I'm out. So I think this one will
people fall.
Sure, yeah, but Disney they'll catch you, except for that one game. But I think it's a cool idea, and I'm just they need something like this over in that area, and I'm interested to see how they're going to implement that at the other hotels, especially if it's going by quickly. You've got to think about are they going to be able to, they'll have to stop it maybe for handicap accessibility and things like that. But I wonder how fast this thing is going to go. That's what I'm really interested in. But finally, last thing I want to bring up, Tron roller coaster coming to Disney World. I think it's nuts because it's like, wait, you're going to put this big roller coaster right next to another big roller coaster? But guess what? That's Disney. That's what I love about Walt Disney World specifically. If Disney World wants to expand, it can. Disneyland has had issues with this, and they've had to shut down things, change things, expand smaller amounts. But with this, they could just say hey, baby, we're just putting in a new roller coaster. Hope you guys like it. It's like Disney's going big, and they're the company to do it. And I absolutely love it. So I'm really excited about that one. I've heard it's really, really good, and this is very different than something like Space Mountain, you know, it might kind of look similar, but this is going to be more streamlined. It's going to be more, I think it's going to be much smoother. Space Mountain's more of kind of a Mad Mouse-ish type of ride, a little bit kind of quick hairpin turns and drops and stuff. This one's going to be, you know, you're going
little rickety.
Huh? Oh yeah, that one's a little.
Rickety.
It used to be really rickety,
just a little bit.
It used to be really rickety, which I loved. I was like, "Ooh, this is scary." But this is gonna be smooth as butter. You're gonna feel like you're on one of those Tron light cycles, baby, just flying through this. Oh man, it's gonna be good. I can't wait. I just can't. Like, Tomorrowland is probably maybe one of my favorite lands. I don't know. I love them all, but that just adds another layer to this. It's just gonna be insane. Just like Disney, man, they just don't stop, and I love it. They just hit you everywhere. Ugh, so good. Excited about it. We want to hear what you're most excited about from all this stuff. We want to know if there's anything that you're most, if it's the game stuff that we talked about for Kingdom Hearts, or if it's more of the attractions or what you're interested in. If you could go to any of these places, you know, what would it be? So, yeah, cool, man. I'm glad we could talk about that. If we want to talk more D23 in the future, please, if you guys, if you're like, we want more of it, please let us know. There's oodles. We could do a whole show on it. But, Joe, before we get into talking just briefly about War for the Planet of the Apes, we have to take a moment and salute our commander, Jonathan Larson. Thank you so much.
Jonathan, thank you, pal.
We appreciate you. You are, Jonathan, one of our $100 patrons. We appreciate you.
Yes.
Well, our only $100 patron right now. One day soon, we will have his beautiful avatar custom made by the one and only Yoren Evers, and we'll just put it up like over here, and I'll be like, Jonathan, and I'll salute it, and people will be like, what's he doing? Because like right now it would look very strange. But yes, all right.
Always appreciated.
Yes, we do. We really, really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you to all our patrons. But let's take a moment, Joe, a few moments here. So I'll talk War for the Planet of the Apes just briefly. Joe didn't see it. I saw it. I did a review of it, so please check it out if you want to. Share it around. And I will flip the spoiler switch in just a few seconds, but I'm just going to do a quick little synopsis of what happened. Caesar is back from the other films, as you know him. Andy Serkis, like a guy who deserves so many more awards than he gets, but seriously, one of the greats. He's back. He's trying to protect, you know, the remnants of the apes. The humans have been all but wiped out, pretty much. There's a crazy military leader who's trying to find him and kill him. There's a few apes here and there who have defected because they were loyal to Koba, who was a bad, kind of a rogue faction back in Caesar's camp in the second film. And so there's a few here and there who are kind of traitors to the cause. And now he's dealing with that. Caesar has to fight off this new kind of invasion. And eventually a lot of the apes get captured. And now he has to go and save them from getting just wiped out. So that is the brief synopsis. I would say it's very good. It's a little bit slow, kind of Logan-esque. So don't look for an action film. The trailers that you'll see they bookend the actual film itself. There's action in the beginning, there's action at the end, and there's a little bit in the middle, but the rest of it's very, very slow. It kind of drags out. But if you like the Apes trilogy so far and you like Andy Serkis, the CG alone is probably worth the price of admission. I'm not kidding you guys. Like, I thought Duratan from Warcraft last year was good, like, as far as CG goes. Weta has, like, outdone themselves. Like, it is insane. Like, there's a moment when Maurice the orangutan kind of gets up close to the camera, and you can see, like, all the individual hairs all over its face. It's like, and, like, the emotion, man, it's, like, next level. I've never seen anything this photorealistic in a movie. And to be as good completely throughout, it's incredible. But, yeah, that's how I'd put it. That's how I'd put it for now. So if that sounds good to you, go see it. If that doesn't, then maybe wait a bit.
So maybe that's why they pushed back the original release date. I think the original release date was 2016 July. Now they pushed it to this year.
Oh, maybe. Is that why they very well could have done that? I'm not sure. I wasn't. That's one of the reasons why people were worried it was going to get buried, but it actually dethroned Spider-Man Homecoming. Spider-Man Homecoming had like a 44 or maybe like 60% drop off in its second weekend or something like that, which is like, they're like, oh, this is really high, but that's actually kind of typical for superhero films. Like, a lot of people, I think, are there that first weekend. And then if there's another big film that comes out like this one, people are like, oh, I've seen Spider-Man films before. Let's see this one. So I want it to do well because I'm interested to see where they could take it in the future. So yeah, I'm going to, Joe, do you have any other questions before I quickly flip on the spoiler switch?
No, let's do it.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, this part's they were delayed. I thought there weren't going to be any spoilers for a second. I was like, oh, no, there's spoilers. So, spoilers for it. Caesar dies at the very end. He passes on. He gets. I know.
You lead right in with that. Great.
Yep, you're welcome.
No more questions. That's all I wanted to know.
It was interesting because I saw an interview with Andy Serkis, and they're like, so does that mean like you're out of Planet of the Apes? He's like, well, not necessarily. He's like, that's the cool thing about motion capture. He's like, I could come back, if the opportunity presents itself. But he said, rarely do people get to play a character from birth all the way to their death, which I thought was kind of cool. Because if you look back at the evolution of the character, not only does he grow as this interesting protagonist, but also like the technology grows with him. And in this movie, you're like, wow, like he looks great, but everybody, man, some of these other guys, like these gorillas too, man, they look like incredible. There's some heart-wrenching stuff in this movie. Like there's some deaths of some major characters. Jarvis, I don't want to hear about this right now. Okay. But Jarvis is like, Jarvis. He's like, why are you talking about anything other than Marvel? But there, Joe, I didn't score this, like, it's not the highest thing I've ever scored. It's not the lowest, but I came out of it kind of like depressed because Caesar does die at the end, and the movie's very long. If you feel it, like unlike Spider-Man, which is kind of quippy and fast and there's always stuff going on, like this is a very like Logan kind of Western revenge story that's just like, all right. There are a few moments of levity here and there, but overall, I don't know if I want to like rush out and see it again. It's not that type of film. It's not that kind of like, yeah, I'm going back. So a lot of parallels though to draw with Logan. Obviously, your main character, Logan, spoiler. Your character's gonna like they both die, at the very end, and they kind of like leave.
No, I haven't seen it yet. I was waiting to see it.
Yeah, I will say this: there is a chimp that they find named, he's called Bad Ape because that's how the zoo named him, but he's like the new one you see in all the trailers. He's that very photorealistic kind of like big bulgy-eyed one, but he has a lot of the levity in there, and it's cool to see another ape that can actually talk to Caesar full sentences. That's something that you don't really get, and he's actually really cool. None of the characters in this movie are bad, which is also really nice. There's not really an annoying one in the bunch. They're all really pretty cool. And they do some interesting kind of like, this is the thing I'm seeing more and more now in movies and TV shows. They bring back Koba, who is dead from the last film, the bad rogue ape, and he comes up to Caesar in like some of these moments when Caesar's getting tortured. He gets captured for a while, and he has these flashbacks, or like he thinks Koba is there. So that's a cool way to implement this really interesting villain who's, I guess, confirmed dead, but still is present. You can feel him everywhere still, even though he's dead, because that's why you have like the gorilla who's defected and joined them, and they rename the animals that come and work for the humans. They spray paint donkey on their backs, and they just call them donkeys. They carry the ammo and they load the guns and they point things out, but they treat them like garbage. They treat the humans treat the gorillas and the other apes like garbage. So it's a fascinating dichotomy of these things that want to live really badly, and the traitors, and then the ones who just want to be left alone, who are just like, I just want to live my life. But Woody Harrelson does an okay job as the villain. He's nothing special or super standout. He finds Caesar's base in the beginning and ends up killing, he thinks it's Caesar, but it's actually Caesar's son and Caesar's wife. And so Caesar obviously is like, all right, I'm on a revenge trip. So all the other apes are going off to this new place that his son had found, like some sort of oasis across the desert. And Caesar takes, he doesn't mean to, but some of his elite follow him, and they go and they try to find this guy. But during that whole process, that group of apes that left gets captured by the military, and Caesar has to go in and save them. He ends up getting captured himself, and he kind of gives up. But then a few of them come in, and they kind of like, one gets captured again, and he's like, okay, man, you done feeling bad about yourself? He's kind of doing a bunch of sign language to him. He's like, all right, are you ready to break out of here? And so they do this kind of cool like heist near the end, which is a lot of fun. But the twist, Joe, here is that Woody Harrelson's character is not the good guy for the humans. He's actually seen as a rogue element. What's going on is there are humans that are losing their ability to speak, and they're becoming feral. And what happened is some of his own, soldiers that happened to, and eventually his son. So he had to make a choice, and to wipe out this contagion, which made the apes, intelligent and stronger. It's starting to make some of the humans just degrade. So he ended up killing his own son and a bunch of other soldiers, and that's why he's trying to kill like all the apes and everyone else. That means the rest of the actual human military who exists views him as like a super kind of terrorist, because they're like, hey man, you're kind of crazy. You're just like killing people. You're not even telling us why you're doing it. So the human military is like in a war within itself. There's like a civil war. So there are other humans coming to fight Woody Harrelson and his crazy like fanatics, and the apes are kind of caught in the middle. They're like, guys, you can figure this out like yourself. And there's kind of a
so you're telling me the whole reason for wiping out the apes is because they carry a virus that's affecting humans?
No, the original reason was because we were afraid of them and we didn't like them, or the humans didn't, and this was just a side effect on top of that. So even though Caesar just wants to be left alone, he's told them multiple. He's like, he catches prisoners in the beginning and he sends it back, and he's like, I just want to be. He's like, just leave me alone in my forest, man. I don't want to do this. And so he just gets goaded into it. It's like, I mean, I get it.
So the rest of the world doesn't really care?
Not so much. The rest of the world is mostly wiped out. I think it's mostly just military factions from what the movie kind of alludes to. There are a few people here and there that are kind of outliers, but for the most part, it's just like the military who's left over.
Oh, so it's not like the suburbs. It's not like,
No, those are kind of run down. Even in the second one, there's like a lot less people there. And there are some people, there's some survivors in camps in the second one, but they kind of have issues too, and presumably are wiped out, or at least don't matter in this film. So at the very end, you have these military factions coming to blows and some kind of avalanche that happens, and it kind of ends up wiping out like all the humans, presumably, except for the one little girl that is accompanying the apes, who has fallen prone to the contagion. She can't speak, but she learns how to do some sign language and ends up forming this bond with the orangutan, Maurice, and they have these kind of cool little moments. But she's like, am I ape? Like, she's like signing it out to him. Maurice like, what are you talking about? Like, it's like, then he kind of pulls out, I don't know if it's a Chevy Nova or whatever, the old car. They find this old car plate that says Nova, and he's like, you're Nova. Like, you will be Nova. So that's how they name her, but she's just part of their group. So she's kind of the Jane Goodall of the apes there.
Poor child, named after a shitty car.
Is it a Chevy Nova? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. But at the end, they find like oasis in a home, and Caesar's sitting on a rock next to Maurice, and he's gotten an injury that he's been kind of nursing for a bit, but he finally sees like this beautiful place where they can live in harmony, and he's finally like, he kind of like Maurice. He's like, I just can't do this anymore. And Maurice is like, people will know your legend. Like, I will make sure everyone knows that you were the reason. And in other Apes films, they talk about Caesar being like this kind of the Moses, as it were, kind of leading his people out of this horrible land through the desert even, and his story coming to an end. So it closes on that, which is like, it's like, it really kind of hurts. But yeah, it's a solid film. They do a few paragraphs in the beginning explaining like the events leading up to it. They even show like, they'll say like blah 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 dawn blah blah blah, and then they'll highlight the word dawn, and then the other one will be like blah 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 rise, and they'll highlight the word rise, and they'll be like, okay, so those are the movies that came before. And yeah, Joe, I don't know if you got the chance, would you want to watch these? They are really solid. I'd recommend them.
Yeah, I saw the one with James Franco.
Oh,
and
yeah, the
that
first
was
one.
Dawn, right? The first one, then Rise of the Planet of the Apes. What is that one? He's not in the zoo?
No, that's the one.
In that lab.
Yeah, he's with Gary Oldman is the bad guy, and they're like doing it's like a big war, and there's like a ton of, there's like the one Kobo's like 2 machine guns on the horseback, and he's just shooting like crazy, like ah.
Yeah,
it's a good one. That one's intense.
Rise of the Planet of the Apes. What's that one like?
I think that's the one I was just talking about. The first one, Dawn, is the one where they just like get smart and then they get out of the town. But then the second one is more like the human like resistance camp like comes to blows with the apes.
Yeah, and they're on the bridge, San Francisco Bridge.
That's the first one. End of the first one.
So I have not seen the second one. Let's put it that way.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's some attraction there. I don't know that I recall the first one well enough to fill in gaps, but with what you've said, I understand that it's basically a wipeout of the human race, and it's setting up the apes to eventually it's going to all do a loop again and come back to humans, right?
Maybe, or it'll just go
if you
into
believe in evolution, but
probably not, just because of the way that the old films have kind of leveled it out, where it's like the apes take over the human space, and then like there's the Mark Wahlberg one where he comes back from space, and he's like, and it's all just apes everywhere. Like they have a human kind of culture, but they're all just like walking, talking apes, like all of them are walking, talking around. So I don't know if they'll go that way, but I don't know if Andy Serkis is out. It's going to be a hard sell for a lot of people, I think, but. It's just a masterful performance, and I just wish that he would get the recognition he deserves because he's so freaking good.
Like we said, he could come back as a different character.
That's true. That's very true. But yeah, that's War for the Planet of the Apes. If you guys have any more questions or any of your thoughts about it, please post it and let me know. I want to hear what you guys think if you go see it, or if you need any more information, please let me know. I'm happy to go on about it, but it's usually easier. Like, I don't want to just make Joe sit here as I talk about every little facet of the film, but yeah, pretty good. Also, I like that Caesar uses a shotgun a lot of the time. Pretty great. Even gets to throw a grenade. I like that kind of thing. I like a shotgun. A chimp with a shotgun, man. Beautiful thing. Joe, now it's time to move into the segment that you and I like to call
Timekillers.
That's right, it's time for Timekillers. The games we've been playing, the movies we've been watching, the cookbooks we've been reading, TV shows we've been viewing. Look at that. I switched it up.
Yeah.
Joe.
I didn't kill any time moving into that segue, did I?
Ooh. No, you didn't. Joe, what have you been killing time with, buddy?
I've been killing time with. Got back in the Ghost Recon lately.
Yeah, it's fun, except when I screw around and ruin everything.
Freaking Jimmy. I didn't think the cave was actually going to collapse. I didn't want that guy to die in there.
I wanted to see the physics, and then it just exploded, and it didn't, like, collapse. So I was like, oh.
Yeah. Oh, man. Needless to say, the next one we beat that, and I ran out backwards. But anyway, it probably looked funny on the stream because you were watching me, and I ran out past it back.
It's great stream, dude. That's the best way to stream. Best of the best.
Just see a guy sprinting out backwards, not even looking behind him.
Simply the best and better than the rest.
Anywho, that game's fun to stream, and we had a good time with that. And I'd like to beat that game too. It is fun.
Yeah, I had a good time.
The nighttime ops, I think, is the best. But
oh, for sure, hands down. I wish I could change that anytime. Just like, we'll just wait 8 hours till it's nighttime. Fine.
Yeah, fast forward 8 hours.
Take a nap. My guy hasn't napped in like a week.
Yeah, and for us, it fast forwards it, right?
Yeah.
Anywho, that been slaying it on MXGP3, and I've been watching. Oh, what have I been watching? Sticking with it, knocking it out. Still loving that freaking show, man.
Oh, Smallville?
Yeah. I recently saw a photo of Tom Welling, Clark Kent in that show.
Mm-hmm.
Boy. Wow. Like, he's got some grayness in his beard and everything. Like, he's 40-something now.
Old man Clark.
Or he's almost 40. Because he was like, I think he was like 22 when he signed on to the show.
Oh, really? That's why he's like an 8-foot-tall high schooler. He's like, hey.
Yeah, and Kristen Crook, who played Lana Lang, I think she was actually 18 or something when she signed on. She's only like, I think she's only like 32 right now.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. When I saw that photo of Tom Welling, I was like, man, this is a bit of a throwback.
Yeah, for sure.
In the flip phone, cell phones, and like the old.
Oh, yeah.
When that first came out. It's interesting, but hey, that was the time I lived through. That's my generation a little bit, hence why it speaks to me so much. What's the word I always use? The sentimental nostalgia. There we go. What a word! I love that word.
The world's most powerful subtlety. That's what I call it.
Yeah. Otherwise, no, I haven't been doing much else. If you include going to a wedding and getting to meet up with some old friends again, killing time for Timekillers, and I did that over the weekend and had a good time. So, what you got going on, pal? What'd you kill some time with?
I finally beat Persona 5, and I've been trying to review this game. It only took me 100 hours to do. So I finally beat it. Review's going to be a little bit, but I promise it's coming. But I beat that, and it feels good because at night now I don't feel like I have to play that game. I'm just like, besides that, I've been watching this really good show that everyone should watch. It's called Turn Washington Spies. It's on AMC, but it's also on Netflix. And the 4th and final season has already started over there. 3 seasons are out now on Netflix. I think they're like 10 episodes apiece. Talks about Revolutionary War times, talking about spies in and amongst British territories working for Washington himself. I don't know how they did it, Joe. They have an actor who plays George Washington who looks basically identical to the man. Every time I stare at him, I'm like, how did you get this guy? Like, I'm just like staring at him like, oh my God. I'm like, and this is like, he has the gravitas and the presence that I would think would go along with George. Like, he's not too over the top or anything, but when he comes in a room, people like they call him His Excellency. Like, there's this kind of reverence towards him that I think is really interesting. And just seeing all of this stuff, especially season 3, goes like bonkers, and it is so fast, and tons of things are happening, multiple storylines, very fascinating show. Perfectly cast. Every character in this show is perfectly cast. I just can't. It's like everyone. I'm like, wow, you're great. You're great. So yeah, excellent show. That's what I've been killing time with. I think that's pretty much everything. A little bit of PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds here and there. Diablo 3 here and there. No.
Yeah. So one thing I forgot to mention is I was killing some time with GOT, Game of Thrones. Winter is coming. Our buddy Drew got me into it. Jimmy hasn't jumped on the bandwagon yet, but
Nope. Feels good.
I watched all 6 seasons last fall, and I was totally caught up. And I was like, all right, I'll watch them. I couldn't wait, so I jumped in and I watched the season premiere of season 7 on Sunday. And it's a good show, but it's just horrible because it's such a continuing story that it's like. Yeah. Oh God, cliffhanger here, and it was only 45 minutes long. I need more. But yeah,
stringing you along, man. They're stringing you along,
and it's all right. It's a really well done, creative show that almost kind of fills that void that's left from Lord of the Rings. You know, where you would typically, man, I wanted more Lord of the Rings movies every year, and this kind of fills that void a little bit because it's along that same genre line, but. Yeah, it's just good, and the production quality is there. It's stellar, and obviously, I think this show has the largest production budget of any TV series ever. Yeah, and it shows. But anywho, killed some time with that on Sunday too. So cool. Moving on, I guess, Jimmy.
Yes, we are moving on to the final segment of the show, my personal favorite, community feedback and questions. Our very first one comes in from Night Warrior 29. He says, all Legion members have decided to have an all-out fight, Joe. What weapons do you give everyone, and who do you think will be the last one standing? #Critical Podcast. You know what? I'm just throwing a bunch of melee weapons in the middle. I really don't want to make them fight to the death, but there's a good chance that I think, and I streamed with him last week when he stopped by, Simon. Simon's just adorable. I don't think anyone's attacking Simon. And I think the people who do, it's a mistake because he is adorable, but he's also very strong. So if you think you're going to get to him, and you think you're going to win a fight, I don't know. I don't see it ending well. I feel like Simon's on the top of all these bodies, but he's adorable. Like, he's just kind of like, eh. But I would never make them fight because I love them. Maybe we'll just have a video game fight, Joe. We'll just have everybody fight that way. But yeah, I don't know, Joe. Do you have any input on this?
I think I'm trying to look up the question here so I can kind of replay it to myself. But
I can read it again to you if you want.
Go for it, please.
All right. All Legion members have decided to have an all-out fight. What weapons do you give everyone, and who do you think will be the last one standing?
Oh, all right, done. The Legion, everybody's fighting amongst ourselves, a civil war, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
Like soccer game where everybody gets one of those orbs, and you put your body into it, but your legs are still sticking out, and it's like a outer layer, then it's got like spongy supports and an inner layer. So you're in that inner layer and you run around and hit each other.
That's what you give everybody? Dude, that's such a good one because we all win. We'd all win. That's the weapon.
In the end. First person to puke loses.
I love that. Beautiful. Thank you so much. It's so cute. All right, and our final question for tonight. Joran Evers, the one and only, asks, what is your favorite fight from a movie/movie franchise? #Critical Podcast, Neo vs. Smith, Aragorn versus Uruk from Fellowship, etc. and I clarified this to Yorn too. If anyone wants to know, the Urukai from the end of Fellowship, his name is Lurtz. I don't think he has like a place in the books, but they had to put some sort of cool one-on-one fight in that movie, I guess, and they didn't have a character to do that, so they're like, we're just gonna make one. So, and it worked out really well. Joe, is there any one-on-one fights that come to mind like immediately for you where you're like, I love that so much, it's so good? Because I could kind of guess what one would be for you if you can't think of one. I think I know of one.
Allude to it for me.
So Joe, that's what I was gonna say. I think it's like Captain America maybe versus Bucky. Is that, you know, the knife fight, the one where he's like he drops the knife over and he grabs under the shield and he's doing all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't remember that one very well, so not tops for me.
That's okay.
I mean, there's some good ones. Lord of the Rings obviously stands out to me. There's a lot of good one-on-one fights in there, but
yeah, no, it's mostly just some Fellowship because it's like Gandalf versus Saruman. Aragorn versus Lurtz. Okay. They don't really have a ton of one-on-ones.
Sure. I was thinking Legolas and that big elephant thing.
One on like 20. He's just keeping count like a jerk. Would you imagine, like, Joe, you went all the way to this fight for like someone that you think you know, Sauron, and then some elf shoots you and counts as he does it. And he's like 16, 17. You're just like, I was 17? And like you fall through.
I should have been number 1, damn it.
Exactly, yeah. Grab onto him like, no. Yeah. You know, for me though, do you have one?
Oh man, I'm trying to think. There's something good out there. I'm trying to think. Oh, that's not one-on-one though. You
think about it for a sec. I'm just gonna say one.
I was thinking Jurassic Park. The original with the T-Rex and the Velociraptor.
How about you do Nedry versus the Dilophosaurus? It's like,
oh yeah. He's like, huh? You're a feisty little guy, aren't you? You just want some food or something. What did he say?
Yeah.
He can't find his glasses. That's the best one-on-one ever.
It's just perfect. He makes that little slip noise when he falls down the waterfall. Two that jump to mind for me right away: Anakin Skywalker versus Obi-Wan at the end of Revenge of the Sith. I think one of the technically the most difficult sword fights of all time. It's incredible, Joe. Like, I know you're not into Star Wars, but even you would appreciate it. And if you watch behind the scenes, there's like I think 10 or 15 different types of costumes they had throughout the fight because they're on a lava planet of Mustafar, and it kind of like singes their outfits as it goes on. So like in the beginning they're perfect, and at the end it's like all messed up, and they actually made different like costumes for each like transitional part. So pretty intense, pretty insane. The other one I think of is Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark, when he fights that big dude in front of that airplane, and it's like this gigantic German dude who's like a big bald guy, and he kind of punches him a few times, and the guy's like knocking him out, and he eventually gets into the propeller of the plane because Indy outsmarts him. It's a good little one-on-one fight.
Man of Steel Zod fight.
Dude, there you go. Dude, that's a good fight. I actually really like that fight.
What's a character that really speaks to me? Superman. Zod.
You got to it. Yeah, dude, that people like they are so angry about that movie, like the destruction stuff. That's what would happen. Like seriously, if two like super beings fought downtown Metropolis, that's what thousands would die. Like Superman can't stop that. He can't be like yeah, exactly. People are like, oh, why doesn't he just make Zod go? It's like, well, he had a hard enough time fighting him. They go off into space for a bit, and you know, which Batman should make a joke later on to Superman saying like, dude, you trashed one of my satellites. Like, it's like, do you know how expensive those things are? Like, I know I'm rich, but that's really expensive. You got to not fight on satellites. But
was it good enough? You trashed the whole city. You had to trash the satellite.
Exactly. That's a good fight, and I'll never forget sitting in the theater with you in the chairs when he's doing like the punch in the chairs, and we're like, it's like
he's just like boom, boom, and the chair is just like. I was gonna fall face first into the person in front of me.
That fight is cool too because I like watching Zod's like exponential understanding of his powers. Like he rips off all his armor, he flies, and then he gets like, or he has the laser vision then too at that one part where he's like, and he can't control it, and he's like, you know, he gets it, and he's like, all right. And it's like, wow, dude, it took Clark. You know, he still doesn't completely understand it, but Zod's like, yeah, I'm kind of at your level now. Like, it's like, okay, so. Yeah, good thing Zod wasn't there for like another week or two because like he would have gotten to a point where it might have been hard for Soups to beat him. But yeah, those are some good one-on-one fights. That would be something to think about more, but those are the ones that we're coming up with now.
Or Clark in the oil platform in Alaska.
Oh, the one that always like
Clark versus the oil rig.
Clark versus his inner demons as he's floating underwater, and he's just like, man, my childhood was tough.
Sounds like a character from South Park.
Yeah, I didn't try to. Don't watch that show. I don't like it. Anyway, so
man, my childhood was tough. It was tough.
That's the show for this week, believe it or not. If you have a question to send to either of us or a topic you want us to cover, all you have to do is tweet the hashtag #CriticalPodcast to either of us at any time. I am at GoCritical or at JimmyGood013. And you can find Joe at
Lever_627, and that's Lever just like Beaver, only with an L.
Exactly. And as Joe alluded to earlier, we do stream from time to time, actually on a weekly basis. So if you want to stop by anytime, you can join us in our merry kind of shenanigans and just botching missions. And
yep. Jimmy, on an ending note, speaking of streaming, how hyped are you for the new Overwatch character? The wait is killing me a little bit.
Yeah, we got a confirmation. It's the 27th of July. So just
that's
like
too far away.
It's like a little over a week.
A whole week from
we talked about it a bunch last time, but we finally got like a confirmation on that. I'm excited about it, but I'm also excited to try Destiny 2 this weekend. So there's a lot of good things going on. Yeah. I want to do a few more thank yous before we wrap up here. Thank you to this Caleb for our great theme song. We love it so much. And thank you, as always, to Your Nevers, the guy who does all the amazing artwork you see on this channel. If you want to go check him out, he is at Jade Circle Art on Twitter or at Niraj28, I believe, or it's there somewhere. But yeah, check him out on Twitter. If you want a commission done, he'll do it. But if you want to get your face on a cool avatar or get a custom one like Jonathan Larson's getting soon, and you want to support us at the same time, check out patreon.com/criticalreviews, where you can get that avatar with your face on it and some other cool rewards. So I want to thank everyone who is a patron, first and foremost, and people who've been liking and sharing, retweeting, doing all that stuff. That really, really helps. Thank you so much. Everyone who does that, if you can't, provide in a monetary fashion, that's a great thing to do for us because it helps get our name out there, people to notice us. So we really appreciate it. But yeah, with that being said, I want to thank you, Joe, for another great week. Nice having you back. It's just you and me this time, Joe. We've had so many other people on this podcast recently. It's just back to...
Guests are a good thing. Got to change it up now and again.
Yeah, man. Original sauce. Oh, yeah. I love my guests. They're great, too. But I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who's watching this for the first time or the 70th time, because believe it or not, this is podcast number 70. I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're telling me. Anyway, I just want to thank you so much. And just remember to adapt and overcome. And we'll see you next time. Bye.